everybody. It's me once again. I'm going to have to come up with a better opening than that. If you got something that sounds better than me just saying, hello everybody, it's me once again, let me know. I gotta come up with something better. I guess I could borrow a phrase from a friend, Russ Dyer, and say, come on into my world. But that's his phrase. And he's Russ and I'm not, and he has a lot more knowledge than me, and I don't feel comfortable with saying that because I don't have all that knowledge like he does. But step on in anyway. Welcome. Today we're going to look at Luke chapter 19. We're going to look at something that everybody knows a story to. Zaccheus. Now, I can already hear some of y'all snickering and laughing with me, not at me, with me, because I'm going to go over a story about Zaccheus. Zaccheus and I do have something in common. We were short. Well, I still am. But we still have the same problems that if we was alive together, we would still have the same problems in that being height challenged, we wouldn't be able to see everything like others would. You know, I oftentimes joke with Jim Featheroff that if he could give me just 6 inches off of his height and give it to me, I would feel a lot better. And he said, well, I would do a lot better too. He said, because I could find clothes that fit me a lot better. You didn't ever think about that. You could be sometimes too tall. Almost like being too short. But we can't change our height, can we? Well, I guess I could, in a way, change my height, but that wouldn't be very good. It probably wouldn't work out. So I'll just stay short like I am. I'm used to it. But Zaccheus was short. And Zaccheus heard about Jesus coming to town around Jericho. Well, he entered Jericho and he was passing through, and there was a man called by the name of Zaccheus, and he was the chief tax collector. And he was rich. I'm not a tax collector, and I am by no means rich, so being short is all that Zaccheus and I have in common. Well, Zaccheus was trying to see who Jesus was and was unable because of the crowd, for he was small in stature. I remember before starting school all the time, going, first grade, going all day. And even after starting school all the time, whenever my mom would go to the bank and I happened to be with her, it took a long time for me to be able to see over the bank counter. Now, I know there's a lot of y'all probably really laughing at me now, but it was true. I had a hard time seeing over the bank counter for a long time. In fact, I really don't know what age I was that I could walk in and smile and see over the bank counter. I'm not real for sure how old I was. I do remember whenever the post office in New Orleans was where Nina Williams lived at, and she lived over here in a house, and the post office was joined together. And it was only like maybe a block or two away from the house where Mom and Dad lived, down to Nina's house, and I would ask Mom if I could go after the mail by myself. So I was probably at least 7 or 8 years old probably. And she'd say, yeah, you can go down there and get the mail. You can check the mail. Well, you don't know how big that made me feel. Going out to check the mail on my own. Not that there was anything to worry about in the town of New Orleans. Everyone knew who I belonged to. I was either kin to half of them by one side and the other half by the other. But everyone knew who I was, and I knew most of them. And I would go into the post office, and I still couldn't see the counter where the window was. And if you knew Nina, you knew that Nina was short like me. And pretty soon she would holler out, "Tim, is that you?" And I'd say, "Yes, I'm here to get the mail." And she said, "Well, let me go check to see if you have any." Because back then it was a combination. I didn't know the combination. And she would go get the mail for me if we have any. And she'd go to the door and she'd open it up and she would hand me the mail. The reason why she didn't go through pass it to me through the window is because she was short too, and it just wouldn't work out too well. Because I still wouldn't be able to reach up there and grab a hold of something, and she didn't want me to grab a hold of something and maybe pull it off and maybe hit me if it was heavy. Not that it ever really was. But being short, you have to overcome certain obstacles. Going to parades, I know that I would have to get up to the curb to see the parade unless I just didn't really care about seeing it, and standing back be okay. Sometimes I do that today. Going to a movie theater is sometimes a challenge, especially the old movie theaters. Not so bad in some of the newer ones because they do what they call stadium seating, and it goes up. So it's not too bad as it was back in the day in the old theaters. Every now and then I will get someone that's tall that sits there in front of me and blocks my view. Sometimes that's good too because the movie really wasn't worth watching and I could take a nap. But sometimes I would have to ask, or I'd have to lean over to one side or the other to see the movie because I'm short. And I'm sure if I lived in a day when Zaccheus lived and Jesus was coming to town and I wanted to see Jesus, well, they didn't have crowd control except for the apostles or disciples. And the crowd could be so pressing in on Jesus to where he was being pushed and shoved and jostled around, like when the woman with the issue of blood comes up to him and sneaks in and reaches in and touches his hem. And that's why when Jesus asked his disciples, "Who touched me?" they kind of answered him sarcastically. He's like, "What do you mean, who touched you?" Because the crowd was pressing in on him and pushing him around and jostling him. It's probably what happened here with Zaccheus, except we're not told the crowd was quite that pressing. But regardless, there would be a crowd around, and being short, he probably wasn't all that big, muscular type of person probably. And so he really wouldn't pose much as a threat. And so people could crowd him out, and being a tax collector on top of that, he really wouldn't have anything to he really wouldn't have anyone to let him in, if you know what I mean. He would be shunned. A tax collector? No, he can't see Jesus. He can't see who Jesus is. So Zaccheus climbs up a sycamore tree. And he's waiting for Jesus to pass by. And Jesus stops. And he looks up in the sycamore tree and he says, "Zaccheus, hurry and come down, for today I must stay at your house." And we know the rest of the story. Zaccheus comes down out of the tree, and when he comes down, he came down gladly and received him. And when they saw it, the crowd, they all began to grumble, saying, "He has gone to the guest of a man who is a sinner." And Zaccheus stopped and said to Jesus, "Behold, Lord, half of my possessions I will give to the poor, and if I have defrauded anyone of anything, I will give back 4 times as much." And Jesus said to him, "Today salvation has come to this house, because he too is a son of Abraham. For the Son of Man has come to seek and save that which was lost." All ended well for Zaccheus. But there's a couple of points that's interesting in this story. One, Zaccheus was curious about Jesus. The whole purpose of Zaccheus doing this was so that he could see who Jesus was. We need to be curious about who Jesus is, don't we? We need to think about what we are going to see whenever we come to look for Jesus. What do you expect to find when you look for Jesus? Are you happy with what you find, or are you sad? The rich young ruler came looking for Jesus, and he wanted a pat on the back, and all Jesus tells him is that he must sell everything he has and give to the poor, and then come follow him, Jesus. And the young ruler went away sad because he had much possessions. So we must keep an open mind of what we're going to find when we go looking or searching for Jesus. 2, Zaccheus didn't let anything stand in his way in finding Jesus. We need to be that way. We need to make sure that nothing gets in our way of finding Jesus. Even if we might have to climb a tree, so to speak, and wait for him to pass under it. Which means we need to keep an open mind of who Jesus is, and what we find is that what we are going to be willing to accept. Here Zaccheus was willing to accept Jesus. Jesus stopped underneath the tree where Zaccheus was at, and he looked up and he said, "Zaccheus, come down out of the tree because I got to spend time with you." And when Zaccheus came down, he gladly accepted him, and Zaccheus heard the crowd grumble. And Zaccheus was the one who speaks. Jesus didn't stand back, and Jesus didn't silence the crowd. It was Zaccheus who really had a change of heart, if you will, or maybe decided to change the way the people saw him. He opened up his heart. He opened up and he says, if I have robbed anything from anyone, I'm going to give back 4 times as much, and on top of that, I'm going to give half of everything I have to the poor. We need to be like Zaccheus and open up our heart to receive Jesus. And then if we do that, then we can enjoy salvation like Zaccheus. I don't know how tall you are. It really doesn't matter, does it? It doesn't matter if you're 5'2" or if you're 6'7", or somewhere in between, or maybe a little bit shorter. It doesn't matter if you're extremely large or extremely small. What matters is what's in your heart and what you do after you find Jesus. And really, what you expect when you find Jesus. Zaccheus was a rich person. And yet he went away happy, unlike the rich young ruler who went away sad because Jesus told him to do something that he didn't want to do, which is give up his possessions. Zaccheus almost forces his possessions on those around him because Jesus took an interest in him. All because Zaccheus took an interest in Jesus first. Where are you at? Are you looking for Jesus? If you are, I hope you keep an open mind in what you will find when you find Jesus. Accept him into your heart and let him do the work that needs to be done. And then put him on in baptism if you haven't already, so that you can enjoy salvation. But if you have put him on baptism already and you've kind of wandered away, and all of a sudden you realize that Jesus isn't around you anymore, look for him, because he is there waiting for you to come back. All you have to do is open your heart to him and let him work what he needs to do in you once again. Well, Zaccheus is a wonderful story, isn't it? I'm glad that God preserved it for all of us to read, even sing the VBS song, and to understand what it really means. It doesn't matter who you are, Jesus wants you. I hope you're doing good, I hope you're safe, and I hope you stay healthy. And God bless. Thank you.